Welcome, everybody, to the February 15th meeting of the Traffic Commission. Can we all stand for pledge allegiance to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have commission members present this evening. Don Charamello, DPW Superintendent, Nick Rystrom, City Engineer, Chief Bright, and I'm Frank Stringy, City Planner. Fire Chief Bright, sorry. Okay. The first public hearing this evening is going to be the continuation of the proposed traffic improvements on Harris Street and the Route 16 intersection with Winthrop Avenue. So this is to talk about the length of Harris Street between Winthrop Ave and Beach Street to be converted from two-way to one-way northbound, and a single block of Sewell Street from Harris Street to Bixby Street to be converted from two-way to one-way westbound. These changes are proposed to improve signalized intersection operations and reduce neighborhood traffic. The Suffolk Downs development proponent will be installing traffic control signage deriving from the improvements at the Harris Sewell, Harris Butler, Harris Beach, and Harris Eustis intersections, and provide the City of Revere an allowance to be used at the city's discretion for potential future traffic improvements in this area. Can we have proponents and presentation of the proposed improvements from HYM?
Check here. Yep. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ian McKinnon from Howard Stein Hudson here on behalf of HYM and the Suffolk Downs project. I want to thank you, Chair and Commissioners, for having us here again tonight. I know we've been before you before, and I want to make this a brief presentation so we can get into some discussion. So the agenda, I just want to go over a couple quick things. Again, a little bit more on the Harris Street intersection, why, again, we're proposing to make this change. Hit a little bit about on the future mitigation of Bell Circle that kind of dovetails with these improvements, and a little bit more of the commitment the proponent has made to implement and monitor this with as a partner to the city. This is a context map. I think many of you are very familiar with the location that we're talking about. It's this green circle, the intersection of Route 145, Revere Beach Parkway, Route 16, south of Bell Circle, and the Harris Street intersection itself. This is part of the broader Suffolk Downs development project, and a project that went through MEPA, went through a lot of coordination with agencies since 2018. And the areas that you see here are the Phase 1R improvements. This is a series of about $10 million worth of roadway improvements to the broader Revere community, and again, connecting between Beachmont and the site and these areas to the west that we're talking about tonight. And so as part of these improvements, you know, there were many alternatives studied and items that went through both review with the City of Revere, MassDOT, DCR, and all of our partners at the state level, and publicly were available as part of the MEPA review process. So I'm going to dive a little bit into the item that we're here to talk about today, the Harris Street intersection. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. This map is sort of turned on its side, 90 degrees. North is to the right, or side of the page here. And so we know what this intersection is, a five-leg intersection today. It suffers from severe congestion, backups on almost every leg coming into this intersection. It's an unsafe condition today with a majority of crashes from the confusion of a five-leg intersection. One of the other key aspects of this is there is not currently a left turn southbound coming from Bell Circle, and because of that, any eastbound movements heading towards Revere and Winthrop require the residential street of Harris Street to make that movement. And so among these improvements that are proposed are to rectify all of these safety issues, a five-leg intersection that is confusing, and the delays that exist today. And so what was proposed and continues to be the design today is a series of improvements here, and I'll walk real quickly through them. The first item is a second northbound right intersection or turn lane heading towards Winthrop Avenue and eastbound. There's a two-lane southbound turn lane that's really the key part of this improvement, which connects Bell Circle to Winthrop Avenue and points east to Beachmont and Revere. This is a movement that can't be done today directly. And so by putting that movement out of Harris Street and onto Revere Beach Parkway southbound, we see that delays and queues are going to drastically diminish. These improvements will save almost 40 seconds for every person that travels through this intersection every day, and we expect the queues or the backup of cars to halve in the future. And key to this is making this intersection a four-leg intersection. As we all kind of expect when we drive our cars in intersections, we expect to see cars coming at us, and yield to those that are directly opposing it. But five-leg intersections are something that typically are phased out of common and current engineering practice. And so as part of this design and a part of the regional planning effort was to remove this last fifth leg of this intersection. And while that may seem like a slight, it actually provides a ton of benefit to handling regional traffic, putting regional traffic back on the regional roadways. And we actually have modeled that this will save even folks on Harris Street over 1.5 minutes getting out of the neighborhood. So by doing this, we gain a ton of signal efficiency. And I think that's why, it's really important to hear that, or to know that, by doing this, we simplify this intersection and everybody will wait less. A key also to this is a number of sidewalk improvements too. There's sidewalk and pedestrian improvements. Today, this is, a very wide intersection to cross. There's an island that's proposed so that it's easier to cross from the neighborhood to the other side of Winthrop Avenue. And so between all of these improvements, we expect to see some safety and much needed efficiency improvements. So the other part to this, and as I mentioned, Suffolk Downs is a master plan development with a number of phased improvements. They have commitments at over 62 intersections that will be phased in over the life of the project, and each of them coming at different various phases. So one of the other key things that we wanted to mention tonight, because we've heard a lot of the concern about Beach Avenue. So if we make some changes on Harris Street, we make this last leg of Harris Street another direction, one way northbound, what does that mean at Beach Avenue? So what's proposed here is a concept that was included in the FEIR, the final environmental report for the Suffolk Downs development. And this improvement will bring a lot of benefit to the neighborhood here, and I think addresses a lot of the concerns that we've been hearing. So this improvement is a vast improvement. The total value is over $6.7 million worth of improvements to drastically improve the traffic improvements at Bell Circle. And that includes an extra slip lane from Beach Avenue. So today that's a one-lane intersection heading eastbound. And so with these improvements, there'll be a separate turn lane directly heading southbound. So you'll be able to slip right around any cars that are trying to head over to the Shirley Ave neighborhood, head north on Route 60. And there's actually a signal proposed there. So instead of waiting and yielding like you do today for that one person that's trying to go around the circle, you'll be able to go straight across, and it'll pull people across because you'll have your chance in the queue of the lights. There's also an extra southbound lane in the middle of the circle, which provides a lot more space. And then there's an added left turn from VFW Parkway, the Shirley Ave neighborhood. So you don't have to circulate completely around the circle to go southbound. So you can take just a left, which some of us may do already, but we know that this is an important connection to the neighborhood. There's other couple improvements related to pedestrian safety. Just north off the page, there's a pedestrian crossing for the Revere High School. There's also a U-turn proposed here just north of this intersection to bring more movements out of this circle to simplify this intersection itself, because we all know how important it is, but also how unwieldy this intersection is today. So between all of these improvements, we'll see huge dividends here in the future. And as I mentioned, this is part of phase 2 as part of the mitigation. The other part to this, and I know we've discussed this in the past at this meeting, is the limit of the one-way change. And I think we've talked about a one-way change up to Sewell Street. We've talked about a one-way change all the way up to Beach Avenue. How do we make this happen so that, if and when this gets approved, that, it'll actually be respected? And so we know that travel behavior doesn't happen overnight. People take a while to get adjusted to new things. But what's key about this is once we make this change, it'll be timed with that same added left turn lane down below at the Winthrop Avenue. So the Harris Avenue switch wouldn't happen without adding that double left that I mentioned earlier. And some of the other things we had heard recently was, can we add some additional signage? So we've proposed a no through traffic at the top of Beach Street so people don't necessarily try to enter the neighborhood if they know they can't get out of it. And so there's a number of things that were proposed. I think we can keep that for more, maybe a discussion here at the end. But the other thing I do want to mention is that, HYM is committed to contributing $35,000 towards any sort of neighborhood improvements. I mean, we know that we may trial this and we may need to change some things, study it. And we really we're committed to making sure that this implementation is positive and potentially very beneficial to the neighborhood. And those improvements could be future study, traffic diverters, road diets, those sorts of things that the city may choose to implement. So with that, I'm happy to answer some questions, but I know Tom also wanted to say a couple words, so I'll invite him up as well.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tom Skrowski, Chief of Planning, Community Development for the city. I just wanted to make a few quick remarks. Won't belabor the point, but we here at the city are supportive of this project for all the reasons Ian mentioned, improving operations of that signal, reducing cut-through traffic in our neighborhood, along Harris Street in particular. And I think this is really the outcome of years of planning with the Development Advisory Group, MEPA, working with DCR, MassDOT, and many of the folks at this table today. In addition to that, I think it's been almost a year that this has been in front of the Traffic Commission now. I think actually last February it was on the agenda. And what I would encourage the commissioners to decide on today is to ultimately make a decision, but then realize that this is one step in a broader process where we're going to have to test and tweak out to see how this works. Because ultimately, this is not a silver bullet to all of our traffic problems on Route 16, nor along this neighborhood here. And it's something that we're going to have to take some time to test and see how it's working. We're certainly grateful for the additional funding to help us do that within my department. And in the short term, what I would propose is if you were to make a vote in the affirmative on this conversion, that we set a 6-month time period from when implementation goes into effect, where my department would work with our neighboring departments to monitor operations and to determine if there's other changes that we need to make, whether neck downs, traffic diverters, improved signage, enhanced enforcement, all of the above. And then we would bring that to a discussion at the Traffic Commission 6 months from the commencement of implementation. And then in the more medium term, we'll also be working with MassDOT to at least look into the alternative of adding just that slip lane along Bell Circle. As you saw in the presentation, the full slate of improvements it's over a $7 million project and is slated for a later phase in the development because of the cost. But we're going to analyze and work with MassDOT to see if we can actually get that one portion to happen earlier. But again, that's probably still a little bit of ways out past that 6-month period, probably well beyond that because of all the approvals we'd need working with MassDOT to make something like that happen. But we want to be working both in the short term and the medium and long term to make sure all of these improvements are happening holistically as part of a network that is functioning better tomorrow than it is today. So I encourage you to support this project. Happy to answer any questions in terms of the city side if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. One question to Ian. Quantitatively, how many vehicles, I know we estimate about 2,500 vehicles now per day use Harris Street. As a result of this change, how many vehicles would be diverted from Harris Street?
We estimated about 1,500 vehicles a day would be diverted.
Turn the mic on.
Sorry about that. Let me repeat that. So we expect almost 1,500 vehicles will be diverted every day.
Okay.
And
And
so
that's
the-
from regional
That's
traffic?
That's regional
cutting through the
traffic. The
neighborhood.
remainder of that is the neighborhood traffic that we expect will continue to use, Sewell Street or other methods to get to eastbound Winthrop Avenue.
Thank you. Tom?
That comment reminded me of one other thing. So at the last Traffic Commission meeting, there was a discussion of, I think, opposition coming from the schools and particularly the busing department that was concerned about how this would impact their busing operations. After that meeting, we met with the schools to talk through these plans, and I think better explaining the context of these improvements allowed them to rescind their letter of opposition earlier today. Most importantly, I think they didn't fully appreciate the impact of the addition of the double left-hand turns and the double right-hand turns respectively on Route 16, as well as the change in the efficiency of the signals from going from a 5-leg to a 4-leg intersection. So I think they were considering that no other improvements would be made and they would just be having to divert, and they were concerned. And, we'll continue to maintain close coordination with them throughout the 6-month pilot period. But once they did hear about those signal operational efficiencies, they were supportive of the project.
Thank you, Tom. Is there anybody else that is a proponent who'd like to speak? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll close that part of the hearing. Are there any proponents that would like to speak? I mean, opponents, excuse me. You sure can.
My name is Christine Robertson. I reside at 187 Charter Street in Revere, not in this particular neighborhood. I just do have one question. Ultimately, this major traffic change that you want to make in this area that has been in existence for more years than I can tell you, is this going to benefit your project? Because we know when your project is complete, because that biotech building is massive, and I can only imagine what those apartment buildings are going to be like. You know that they're all going to come down Furlong Drive and down that main street on Suffolk Downs, and they're going to inundate Route 16 and head towards the shopping center there, and then ultimately down to Squire Road, down to Market Basket, and to Route 1. They're not going to go up through the turn off the other side in Boston and use that highway, which is 1A north. You know that for a fact. They're going to, our infrastructure is so inundated with daily traffic now, it's insane. I live on, it takes me 5 minutes to get out of my driveway, and I live in a residential area because of the traffic on Squire Road and the lights and the traffic lights. I have talked to MassDOT, I have written to MassDOT. So ultimately, this project will only benefit you and your project, and you people don't live here. You live somewhere else and will not put up with the benefits or the deterrence of this project at the end. You will walk away to your next project. Am I correct?
So I'd just like to note, this project is really, it is the result of Suffolk Downs in that it is off-site mitigation related to the project, but it's actually not for the development itself. It's for the impacts that the development will have. Because this went through a rigorous review process with MEPA, the state, MassDOT, DCR, and a development advisory group comprised of citizens and residents and businesses in the city of Revere. This was a major intersection of concern because, number one, there was a lot of concern about that increased traffic on Route 16 cutting through Harris Street. So as we saw, there's 2,500 cars that cut through today. There was some concern, and I think justified concern, that a lot of that additional traffic on Route 16 would then be cutting through a residential road. So the idea here is to divert that traffic from residential streets because regional traffic should be going through regional roads, not local ones. And then secondarily, and I drive in Revere every day, and I couldn't agree with you more, the wait times at some of our signals are outrageous, and the traffic is difficult to sit in. And as Ian had mentioned, the goal of these improvements at the intersection is actually to reduce everybody's wait time at the intersection so the intersection moves smoothly, both by adding additional left-hand turn lanes going in one direction and right-hand turns on the other to reduce queuing, but also reducing the wait times by going to a 5-leg to a 4-legged intersection. So actually, this was an improvement that was really developed by the community as a mitigation to the impact for Suffolk Downs to help improve traffic operations.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else would like to speak?
Zachary Babo, resident of 80 Harris Street. A couple of my concerns that going on, I think it was touched on Beach Street. Right now, when I go home anytime 5 o'clock at night, especially in the summer months, Beach Street's already backed up closer to School Street, and sometimes it can take me 20, 25 minutes sitting on Beach Street alone to make it to Harris. So with that being said, if there's no adjustment yet, I know it's part of Phase 2, but what's the timeline on that? Is that 2 or 3 years before Bell Circle gets adjusted? At that point, that Beach Street traffic is going to be backed up for a few years, and we know people are going to make bad habits really quick. And then when we reconfigure this intersection in 3 years from now, we're going to hope that they readjust those bad habits that they learned over time. Now, that's just in Beach Street. For myself, when I want to make it home, with this change, if this goes forward, I am now forced to drive all the way down the highway to get to Bell Circle to now come to Winthrop Ave and take a right on Harris. That just added probably about 5 to 7 minutes of my time, depending on traffic and time of the year. As well as, if that is not my option, I'm leaving from City Hall, I am now forced to travel the residential streets, Library, Bixby, and Butler to get to Harris. And those streets are already narrow, kids play there all the time, and I'm not the only one. Any of my neighbors within that grouping of our addresses are all gonna be sent down the same way, because there's no easy way to get home now from the other side of the city, especially if you're coming from Market Basket or things like that. We're gonna be forcing traffic to come now Bell Circle, take a right on Beach Street to go westbound in order to get to the library, or if you're going to a Eustis, if we reverse the one way of a Eustis. I just feel like this one change, and we witnessed this recently with Sigourney Street. We tried to fix a problem that we were experiencing on Sigourney, and all we did was move the problem from one place to another place. So we didn't really address that. And I'm afraid the same thing might happen here. As well as, there was a couple other motions in here, parking restrictions and things like that, and I'll wait for those to come up. Yeah. But the traffic pattern of the neighbors that live there, the forcefulness to force those neighbors to drive the local residential streets instead of maintaining Harris as their outlet. And I have a neighbor too here. Harris Street, we understand the traffic comes, we get that. But I think we're willing to accept that. I don't think it's as bad as what it's seemed to be. I think the hardest part about Harris is the speeding and the ignoring of the stop signs.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak?
My name is Cindy Evans. I live on Butler Street. Thank you for what you said. I'm in agreement with the gentleman from Harris Street, the things that he said. First, I have a comment, and the comment is, and I'm sorry, folks, I think this is a better proposal than the one you came with back in the summer. So I thank you for that. As a resident of Butler Street, I do think it's a better proposal than the previous one. I do have two questions. One has to do with what the gentleman before me just said, and that is, did anybody look at the impact on Library Street and also Beach Street when we are now residents of Butler Street, Bixby Street, all have to be funneled that way if we're coming from the west? Did anybody look at that? Because Library Street is a mess, particularly on Sundays when the two churches have their congregations. It's a mess, and we now are all going to be coming in there. So that's question number one. Question number two is a clarification question. I don't understand why Sewell Street is now going to be one way for a block. So if that reasoning can be explained to me, what the benefit of that is, because it eludes me. And then as far as other things that should be considered, if Harris Street is going to be one way, more than a stop sign, I'd like to see a speed trap or a speed bump, hump, plate, whatever they're called, on Harris Street, because it is like the Indianapolis Speedway now. And as one way, I can just see it being worse.
Thank you. Regarding Sewell
I don't
Street,
understand it.
yeah, but regarding Sewell Street, we did have at our last traffic commission meeting, we will be making no parking on that section of Sewell Street from Harris to Bixby. So that will allow two-way traffic. So I think the view of the board, the commission, is to keep Sewell Street two-way between Bixby and Harris Street. Now with no parking allowed on either side.
So it's going to be continued
I think that's going to be a recommendation coming out of the commission, because the reasoning is to not provide any further disruptions in the neighborhood. If that's a route of exit and entrance coming into your neighborhood, we don't want to take that away from the neighborhood and have them diverted onto other side streets.
Just for this block. It's only that block.
But then this is gonna be a one-way, so where are they gonna go? They're gonna still be able to go this way, and then two-way's gonna come up to here, but where is this traffic gonna be forced to go? They can't take a right now, so they're gonna have to bang a U-turn or a three-point turn?
Can we speak into the mic and have any questions we can hear?
It seemed like there was a lot of confusion about, because the language I understand in the public hearing still states that the entirety of Harris Street from Route 16 to Beach would be converted to one-way. And what Ian had just presented tonight, and this was after multiple conversations with the Traffic Commission and others, to just convert that first block up to Sewell to one-way northbound. The remainder of Harris Street would remain two-way.
Yes, we're going to address that in our discussion, because that's a move, again, I think the commission feels it benefits the neighborhood traffic circulation, not to take that two-way option away from them, so they only have one way out, and that's to Beach Street. So that'll come up for further discussion. Do you have any other questions, Zach?
One other statement I wanted to make, I don't want to beat this project up, because I understand there's a greater good for this, right? It's just a little bit of an intermediate change in this general neighborhood area. So one thing I want to ask is similar to what we did with Sigourney Street. I think on the ordinance, it states that we can do, the Traffic Commission has the ability to approve a 90-day pilot and then revisit after 90 days to see what changes. I know it was presented as 6 months. I just feel 6 months is a little far away to go, especially as the summer months is quickly approaching and the Sandcastle event is growing and growing each year. And that's where you're gonna see a ton of that traffic build up on Beach Street, especially during those summer months. So if it is the wish of the Traffic Commission to move forward with this, as a resident, I just requested maybe we do it on a 90-day pilot, revisit it again after 90 days and see what feedback we have gotten from the neighborhood and the developers. And that was my take on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So what's important here is to discuss the time frame, and maybe Ian can elaborate on that. But in the meantime, Ralph has a couple of questions.
All right, Ralph DeChico, I'm here as a resident, 49 Washington Street. Now I'm totally confused. This went out for a public hearing stating that the length of Harris Street between Winthrop Ave and Beach Avenue will be converted from a two-way to a one-way northbound. Now we're hearing that it's not. What is the true fact? We can't say, well, it's changed, it's this, it's that. What is the true fact? This went out and publicized for a public hearing that it's changing from Winthrop Ave to a Beach Street, we converted to a two-way to a one-way northbound. It says the entire Winthrop Ave to Beach Street, the whole entire thing. So what is true fact? People are getting misinformed, and this is why the residents are getting ticked off. What is the true fact? Now we're hearing that it's not. What is the developer? Please let the residents know what the true fact is. If we can't say, well, it's this, it's that, that's not what the public hearing was, this was not, was put into the paper.
You have to understand, this project, we've been looking at this over and over again to minimize the impacts to the neighborhood, to minimize disruptions to the neighborhood.
Right.
So looking at the one-way all the way, it became evident that that's going to disrupt the neighborhood. So we can easily make that one-way modified just from the first block, from the Parkway to Sewell Street. And we can do that as an amendment at the Traffic Commission hearing.
So that's what we're gonna do as an amendment?
Well, we're going to discuss that.
Okay,
And
so we're
because
not, so it's not the true thing of doing the
No.
entire street
No,
as
that's,
a one?
it's all
Okay.
still
All
up
right,
for a vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted Ian to kind of give you a timeline idea of when this would start, because I believe we're like in 2025, we're like 2 years away.
So construction, if we have some approvals here tonight, are expected to start sometime middle of the year with an expected finish in sometime in the 2025 time period.
Yeah.
We don't have an exact date because there isn't a contractor and their schedule on board, but that's generally the current schedule.
Yeah, so these regulations regarding one-way conversion would not be in effect until
Correct.
2025.
At the end of construction.
Yeah.
And the intention is to, all of these improvements that are up on the screen right now would open simultaneously. So we would never have not an ability for someone to get out and take a left to come out of Route 60 and Route 16 southbound. So all of these things would happen simultaneously.
That's correct. Okay, thank you.
To Mr. Babo's point of going from a 6-month to a 90-day pilot, I have no concerns with that approach, and if, the commissioners would like to propose something to that effect, I think that's something we could accommodate.
Thank you.
And I want to take my hat off as a resident. And Zach Babo, Director of Parking, City of Revere. One of the other concerns was removing some of those parking spaces along the seawall fence. The building that fence abuts is Revere Housing, and it's elderly Revere Housing. So I know most of the cars over there are the elderly residents who live in Revere Housing that cannot get parking in their off-street parking lot, so they park closest to the fence near their residence. There is really nobody from the neighborhood that parks there. Every house over there has a driveway, and those cars stay in the driveway, so any cars that are on the fence belong to the housing authority. My concern is that if we remove that parking area, we are now forcing these people in front of other residential homes that are usually undisrupted. So I do feel that this is gonna be a sore spot for the neighborhood too. If we vacate 50 feet of parking that has been there for years, I understand the concern. I don't think there's huge traffic flow over there that would need to make a concern, but if we wanted to step it back to 20, 25 feet, which is by a state law, I would agree with that, but I think 50 feet is taking away a little too much parking over there, and you're gonna force about 9 cars now to scoot back and be placed in front of residential homes, where in this area, it doesn't abut any residential home besides housing authority.
Well, if it's gonna be a two-way, we need to do that.
Well, it's a
If we
two-way
go
now,
back-
right?
Right, and that's why it doesn't work. So that's why we remove the parking. If we're gonna convert it to a one-way, yes, the parking can go back. But, that has to be decided. There is plenty of room on Harris Street for parking also along that side.
Yeah, usually those spots are pretty filled up too, and I think there's two handicap signs on that location for residents of the housing unit. So that's my only thing, and Seawall's kind of been a two-way street forever, ever since I lived there and growing up, and I've never witnessed any issues. But I do understand you want to vacate closest to the intersection, I get that. I just feel 50 feet is too much, just my professional opinion, thank you.
Okay.
I wasn't going to speak today. Ed Terrell, 70 Sewell Street, Revere, Mass. I'm honestly very disappointed in this commission. I mean, you publicly say one thing, and then we walk into a meeting and we get another thing. As far as I'm concerned, that's a violation of the open meeting law. I'm not an expert, but it's infuriating. The last time I spoke here, I asked for help in terms of some enforcement in traffic, and we have had no help whatsoever. Now, I may sound angry, but there's a lot of children in our neighborhood that are gonna get killed. The cars go through the intersection at Elm Street and Sewell without even obeying the signs at all. And it's almost a nightmare to think of some kid gonna get run over there. Cars are parking on the sidewalk. I know my friend Ralph knows all about this. It's a violation of the ADA. What is going on here? It's unbelievable.
Again, I can tell you that this plan has been morphed and changed, again, with the first foresight of the main goal of ensuring the neighborhood has minimal disruption. And at one point, there were public meetings with the neighborhood, I believe with a counselor, and it came back to us that the one-way conversion all the way to Beach Street would be acceptable to the neighborhood. Well, then we heard there's gonna be difficulty coming into the neighborhood from Beach Street. Now you're gonna have to take other alternate routes, which is gonna further impact the library neighborhood. So now we're back to the drawing board and to discuss, should we go back to the one-way, modified one-way from Revere Beach Parkway to Sewell Street? And that seems to be the route that provides the least disruption to the neighborhood. So we're gonna have an open discussion about that as soon as this hearing is over. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? As an opponent, proponent, we'll hear from anybody at this point.
I'm not an opponent,
Yeah.
I met with you, Frank. My name is Denise Senna. I'm Revere Public School Transportation Director. We met, it was explained, the project to me. I just wanted to inform everybody what we use this road for and how we're going to have to do other changes, because we use this road to transport approximately 1,500 kids a day with buses back and forth to schools. That's just general ed. We also have special ed that takes the short buses and the vans. And what we do is double runs. So we use Harris Street as a cut-through, because we need to get from one side of the city to the Garfield and the Beachmont School, and then effectively get back to do another run. This is all gonna change. Now that Beach Street turn is gonna help. How, I don't know, and I don't know when that's gonna happen, but it will help, because it will make the buses move in an orderly fashion. So what we're thinking now is, you're doing a study in the next 6 months. We think next school year, because this isn't gonna happen next school year, we're thinking that we're going to avoid Harris Street altogether and just see how it works for a year. And then we'll have to come back and see times. And is it gonna impact the students? And if it's gonna cost us more money to get more vans or vehicles to take kids, to get them to school on time. And that's something Dr. Kelly and I have talked about, and we're gonna look into it in the future. But I just wanted to tell you, I think it's a good idea. I think with that, especially that cutoff, that really helps. Because Winthrop Avenue, we can't stop on Winthrop Avenue. It is if we stop our bus on Winthrop Avenue, it stops all the buses back there and the traffic all the way to the Immaculate. So we're gonna try to avoid that whole area. Beach Street is the answer to moving the traffic. And I appreciate him, Ian? I appreciate him telling us that he was gonna add a second lane to that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm back again. Ed Terrell, 70 Sewell Street. Mr. Chair, at the corner of American Legion Highway and Harris Street, are the cars allowed to go up Harris Street at all, or is that a one-way?
American Legion Highway, Harris Street, and
At the end of the high school with the.
at the end of the high school. That's a do not enter, that's,
Well, the school buses have been going up there, and they're not allowed to.
yeah.
The corner of American Legion Highway and Harris, they go right up.
We have a member of the traffic department can answer that question for you.
Yeah, so there should, the buses should be going on American Legion Highway into Bell Circle, but they're not doing that. So that may have to be looked at.
Yeah. Thank you. You want to address that?
As you come down American Legion Highway, it comes up to 90 Harris. That first initial, I don't know how that sign got put up, but it's not a proper sign because it doesn't designate the times which are restricted for that time. The two signs up at 200 to 12, there's two signs there that designate that in the morning from 7 to 10, you cannot go up Harris Street. And from 2 to 7 in the afternoon, you cannot go up Harris Street. And I believe that's from Monday through Friday because of the morning traffic and the afternoon traffic.
Okay, so Harris Street is restricted by time frames in the morning and the afternoon.
And there is a considerable problem with people just disregarding any signs that are there and going straight up it.
Thank you.
Okay?
Hi, John Chrysafkis, 150 Prince Street, Jamaica Plain. I'm speaking with and for Roberta Powers, who's a resident of Revere on Hasey Street, off Harris Street. She told me not to get up because it's all been decided. It's hardly, well, Ralph said he's confused. Ed said it was a little disappointing. It's hardly a public hearing if you're just deciding the details right now rather than asking opponents and proponents. You're deciding whether or not to put a little speed bump or, whether or not, there should be parking outside the elderly housing. So I'm wondering whether it's worth speaking, but I am speaking for Roberta, who feels that she's sort of been screwed for the last 30 years on the small street that she lives in, which the city made into a paper street for a couple of houses to be built and then made it back into a street many years ago. So I think it is a little disingenuous to call this a public hearing. It's a little disingenuous. I think the gentle lady was right that it's less or not immediately improvements to Revere. If it is improvements to Revere, Revere should have thought of this some time ago. It's of benefit to someone, and I think it's HYM. It's also of benefit maybe to the city because it's a cheap way of making some improvements. I agree with the young man who spoke about what it means to get out of some of these streets and to come back along Beach Street to come back to Harris Street. And so Ms. Powers has to get out and do a whole loop to go to Winthrop Street. She has to do the same thing to get back to her home just from the pharmacy on Broadway. I think it's also a little disingenuous, or at least incorrect for HYM to, I don't know where they do these research studies, but from 2,500 it becomes 1,500, so about half. I guess if you have a two-way street, which it is now, and you cut it to a one-way street, yeah, maybe about half. But they should give us a better study as to what will happen when the thousands of apartments will be built and all of the people will be coming from Winthrop to avoid the beach, which will be busy at hot hours, and avoiding the circle. It'll be so much easier, especially for the residents, to go through Harris Street. I think it'll be at least double, if not triple, what it is right now. I think that's it. Oh, and you mentioned it was a community effort to get to this point. I know, from the little I know of Revere and its council, that you would make a huge stink for a neighbour to talk to other neighbours if a fence was going up. And I'm wondering how many of you approached people who live on Tracy Allen Way especially, and Hasey Street, which are little small dead ends that will be locked in, or to use HYM's words, keeping the neighbours in the neighbourhood, the animals in the cages. I really think that you should have spoken to these neighbours that will be literally blocked if you care about them. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Doug Mann's partner with the HYM Investment Group. I actually really do appreciate everyone's comments tonight and coming out tonight, but just want to reiterate some things that Frank had said. So Suffolk Downs went through an over 2-year public process just for the permitting, right? We met extensively with the Neighborhoods Development Advisory Group. There were countless public meetings and hearings, both here as well as at the site. So to say disingenuous is a very strong word for us because we've done extensive, so I'm saying extensive public outreach. This process here has been going on for 1 year as an open public hearing. We've been here 4 or 5 times, right? So suggest that we just showed up tonight, again, I don't think is really, so. No, but just want to be clear. I just want to be clear about that. So this truly is a benefit for the community. Yes, it also benefits our project too as well. But the improvements at Route 16 and Winthrop are pretty substantial. the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has made very little investment in the Revere community over the last 20 years. We know this, right? We understand your roads, and so this is the first time something very significant is happening. And I spent a lot of time with Ian and Howard Stein Hudson on traffic analysis too as well. And so, again, the models do show us reducing traffic. That's gonna be safer for the people on Harris Street. We are literally cutting 1,500 trips per day off the street, right? So again, I just think, but again, I just want to be in context. We have been in front of the community. We've been very open, very interactive. We continue to be. And that's why we're here, right? And so I also appreciate the comments because we're happy to continue the dialogue. But I do think Revere deserves the changes that we're talking about now, and there's a lot more to come, right? And so we're trying just to move forward and get these changes done. So anyways, but thank you.
Thank you. I think the discussion went a little off track. I mean, one thing that has not changed throughout this whole process is Harris Street will not be an outlet anymore. So how do you deal with traffic coming in and out of Harris Street for the residents that live there? And what's the safest way of doing that? So the safest way and the least disruptive way is to maintain Harris Street, in my opinion, as a two-way. So you have more options of getting in and out, and you're not going through other streets. So what has not changed was the original proposal is to make Harris Street a one-way between the Parkway and Sewell Street for that one block. We will have to have signboards at the top of Beach Street saying this is not a throughway, it's just a neighborhood street. And we'll keep those signboards up throughout the process till people get educated and understand that there's a better way to head eastbound on Route 60, Revere Beach Parkway from the Bell Circle instead of going down Harris Street. So that main component has not changed. What we do with the rest of Harris Street and the side streets that's what's up to discussion this tonight. And that's the main impact that affects the neighborhood. So I just wanted to put that out there that would, there's no drastic changes from the original proposal.
Zach Bobo, 80 Harris Street. So my main point of my discussion was Beach Street, right? So it's clear, it's stated, last year I heard from Traffic Sergeant Janino that it was 6,000 cars a day down Harris. This year it's 25. The number isn't really alarming because we don't see it that dangerous over there. But my concern is, all right, so we have 2,500 was the number said tonight, travel down Harris Street. We stopped that, we're gonna be removing 1,500, was that what the gentleman said? Okay, so now that's 1,500 cars that are stuck on Beach Street. Beach Street's already a problem. I don't know if there's any member from Mass DOT here, but if it's the wishes of the commission to move forward with this, I would ask that Mass DOT be reached out to. I understand Bell Circle is part of Phase 2, but there needs to be an adjustment with the signalization at Bell Circle to help get that Beach Street traffic out until the reconfiguration is done in a few years from now during the Phase 2 process. So whether that's, giving the red light over by the Starbucks for an extra 10 seconds to allow that Beach Street traffic to get into the circle or get onto Route 16 and figure out this way. Because one of the troubling parts of living over there, if you're not an aggressive driver and kind of have some guts to you, people are coming around that rotary and people are afraid to pull out into Bell Circle coming from Beach Street. So delaying their green light will help clear out some of this until the entire infrastructure is adjusted. Just a tidbit of information, if it's the wish of the commission to move forward, I would ask that we speak to DOT about maybe adjusting some of the signal timing at Bell Circle for now.
I agree.
Thank you.
But you have to understand that a lot of traffic comes down Route 60 and cuts through Harris Street. And this will divert all that traffic by sending it right through Route 16 and with the extra slip lanes going left towards Beachmont and Winthrop. So that's a big win for the city of Revere.
And I appreciate that. I definitely understand the overall benefit of this project. I do. I think there's going to be some hiccups in the first few years during the first few phases of the construction that could really just cripple Beach Street. And like I said, it's going to make people change their driving patterns. At that point, they're going to change for the worse before the construction is done, and then you're going to ask them to change their habits again. It's just going to be hard to overcome.
We'll get there. Is anybody else would like to speak? Yes.
Cindy Evans from Butler Street. So I have egg on my face. My comment that this was a better proposal was based upon what was on this paper, not what's actually being rolled out, and that's Harris Street is the two ways part of the way. The impact on Butler Street is going to be horrific. People are going to quickly figure out, oh, let me take a right onto Butler, not wait until I get up to Sewell. And I've spoken before this council before about the children playing in the street, about the, lack of sidewalks. I know sidewalks are supposed to come. I don't know where they're going, given the cemetery, but that's your problem. Getting up Elm Street and that blind corner onto Winthrop Ave, it's going to be lethal. And I'm not a hysteric, okay? 2 ways on Harris, going on to Butler, big mistake. It's just a big mistake. Also, when I was up the last time, I meant to question the language. Now I don't even know if this is the right language, about the money that was supposed to be set aside. And it said, provide the city of Revere an allowance to be used at the city's discretion for potential future traffic improvements in the area. Is that the same 35,000 you were talking about? All right. My concern with that is just ensuring that it is earmarked for the neighborhood. Because, and then my final comment, you had said that this is a work in progress. It changes, it changes, it changes. I believe you. I do not accept that this was sent out, because this is the same form that was sent out for last month's meeting, which was canceled. So you have ample time to update this. Thank you.
Correct. So let me get something straight here. As a resident there, are you in favor of Harris Street a one-way, all the way, or a two-way?
One way.
Okay,
I'm in favor of that. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else would like to speak? Hearing none, seeing none, I will close the hearing. Traffic Commission members, any questions, discussion?
Hi, Don Charmella. I came into this totally, neutral. I learned a lot, about some of the plans, and I had some concerns. One of my main concerns was the fact that this phase, I was under the impression that Beach Street wasn't being addressed. Beach Street, 2 lanes going, being able to go out to Bell Circle is huge for this area. Right now that Zach is correct, it queues up quite a bit. It queues up, sometimes almost to School Street. So once I understood that that was going to happen, I had a better feeling about this project and, the direction what we were going to go. I myself have used Harris Street as a cut-through many times to get either to the HYM site, to Beachmont, for whatever reason, with my City of Revere truck, only because I didn't have the ability to take a left on 216, so off of 16. So, those 2 left lanes are, again, a key factor in getting that traffic off of Harris Street. The only concern I do have still, and this can be addressed and it can be definitely managed, this coming spring, we have a water replacement project going on in that neighborhood that's going to involve 18 streets, over 2 miles of water mains. That project is going to be the total construction year of 2024, and then it's going to go into 2025. We will need some coordination between HYM and Howard Stein Hudson for traffic plans, because we are going to have to wrangle this contractor, because the project has already been awarded, and now this is going to gum things up a little bit when it comes to Bixby, Butler, Harris, and Library, Sewell. I mean, it's literally 18 streets and it's 2 miles of water mains. There's a second phase. Well, there's actually 2 more phases after that. It's addressing the drainage in that area, which we're also going to do. And then the third phase and the final phase is reconstruction of the streets and sidewalks. So I know there's a lot of concerns about the lack of sidewalks, the width of streets. That all is going to be addressed. We've seen it. We see that some streets that are extremely narrow, some sidewalks are extremely wide. There has to be some standard down there where everything is basically, you know, one width. And we're gonna take a really hard look at where there is no sidewalks, there will be sidewalks. There is gonna be difficulty in front of the cemetery. There's no question about it. I've looked at Butler. The opposite side of Butler really isn't a problem. There are some grade challenges there. But yes, I'm not really quite sure what I'm gonna do around the Rumney Marsh Cemetery.
I'll be very interested since my house is there.
Well, that cemetery was there a lot longer than we were here, and probably before the sidewalk ordinance went in. So, but we will absolutely try to, you know, figure out how we're gonna manage that. And the fact that we do see that those intersections onto Harris can be adjusted so that they're better negotiated with a vehicle. In other words, cleaner sweeps so that they're not so tight. So we're gonna look at everything there. But that's after water, drainage, and then obviously sidewalk and street reconstruction is going on down there. That, I would like to somehow get some coordination with Ian on these projects, and that would be my ask. That's about all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. From an engineering point of view, I think that removing that fifth leg from the intersection at Winthrop Ave and Route 16, I think, is the most important piece to the success and to making the traffic in that area better and to ease it. I think that along those same lines, the 2 lanes being able to turn off of the ramp coming down from Bell Circle, again, a very big improvement. Way, in my opinion, way overdue. The fact that that doesn't exist and that you're forced to go down Harris doesn't, you know, make a lot of sense. And then also the improvements to Bell Circle that will follow to try to ease some of the traffic on Beach Street. Again, I think very important. I would agree with some of the residents. I think you're going to see there's going to be some amount, you know, if this is implemented the way it's being presented, I think you're going to see some amount of kind of growing pains because there is some behavior that needs to be learned by people that cut through there now. There is significant traffic that is not local, that's regional traffic that comes down Harris. I would say in the morning and in the afternoons, you know, people that are commuting and things like that, that would be removed. I think that you're going to find that is a significant amount of vehicles each day. And, you know, over time, I think that on Harris Street, the people, the vehicles that you see there are going to be only local people. But it's going to take a little bit of time, you know, to get that to happen. I do think that you need to, you know, to make it a little bit easier on the residents, you have to have 2-way on Harris for the majority, just so that people leaving and, you know, coming and going to their houses are not, you know, sort of pigeonholed into certain traffic patterns. And so I think that is addressed with, you know, the 1-way being instituted, not for the whole street, but for at least the beginning part, which then addresses the 5th leg. I think overall and over time, the improvements will be significant. I think that they'll be beneficial in the long run. And like I said, from an engineering point of view, I think that they're sound and appropriate. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Fine. Okay, obviously, this will have to, given the changes that will take place here in the behavior of the neighborhood, will have to be observed over a period of time. And we're giving it a 90-day pilot period. for this project. What we're going to talk about now is a motion to either keep it, modify the one-way between Parkway and Sewell Street, or maintain Harris Street as a one-way all the way to Beach Street. So that's the motion that has to be discussed. Do we have a motion, one way or the other?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the changes as described with the following amendments, that the one-way would only extend from the Parkway to Sewell Street, and also the Sewell Street, that the first, or the block of Sewell Street remain two-way, in lieu of the, what we speak of later, I guess, of the parking being restricted so that the two-way traffic can happen.
Okay. So there's a motion to maintain a one-way on Harris Street from Revere Beach Parkway to Sewell Street, and to have Sewell Street as a two-way. This would be for a 90-day trial period. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. None opposed. Okay, this is approved as a 90-day trial period at the time those sequences become, regarding the signalization, is complete. And again, we'll maintain Harris Street as a two-way except for the lower section, lower block. And there will be signboards put at the top of Beach Street for traffic management purposes. And we will also take a look at other traffic calming devices such as speed humps on the street.
Mr. Stringent, can I make a recommendation for Sewell Street for the parking?
Sure.
Instead of making the no parking on the left side where the Revere housing is, can't you just simply put up no parking signs across the street from that fencing just on that side there? There's mostly driveways there. There's only probably one or two spots that are there for parking, and just put up no parking just on that side over there and leave the parking there because I do know there are a lot of residents that are mobility impaired, but they don't have handicap parking and park at that fence to go right into the doors there. So just make the one-sided parking, let them be able to park on that fence side, and just put no parking signs across the street because there's probably only one or two spots that are there because of the driveways.
The problem with that is the width of the roadway, the paved roadway, is only 22 feet. So if you have parking on one side, there's no way it can be.
So there's going to be no parking at all on both sides?
That's correct.
Oh, okay, all right. I thought you were going to just have parking on the opposite side.
No,
My
no,
bad,
it's
sorry.
too narrow to allow
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Just want to confirm, are we restricting parking along that whole block or just the 50 feet along the fence?
It's restricted parking from Harris to Bixby
Thank you.
on Sewell. So that block. Okay. We'll go to item number 2. This was approved on July 31st, 2023, a Council Order 23-181, submitted by Councilor Marabito, that Mayor Patrick Keefe requests the Traffic Commission to establish Hancock Street as a one-way heading towards Mountain Avenue. Do we have any proponents?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Paul Agenzio, 245 Reservoir Avenue, Ward 4 Councilor. When this was proposed last meeting, I asked it be tabled so I could make the residents of Hancock Street aware of this change. So I dropped flyers in everybody's mailbox, and I've received some calls, but there was no opposition to Hancock Street being made one way from Park Ave to Mountain Ave. Everyone is in favor of this change, and if you could move forward on it, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Are there any other proponents? Please come forward.
Officer Lucero, Revere Police. At the part that I think that not only that Hancock should be a one-way, I think that the city should take a hard look at doing something with some of the rest of the streets because of the amount of vehicles now that are being parked and the difficulty that it takes for two-way traffic on those streets that run along between Park Ave and Mountain Ave.
I totally agree with that, and we had devised a plan for alternating one-ways and making every street off of Park Ave, between Park and Mountain Avenue a one-way. It's absolutely necessary. That'll be the second phase of this. Looking at that plan, the proposal for Hancock Street to be a one-way from Park to Mountain is consistent with the layout of those one-ways, so we can go forward with that at this time.
Thank you.
Are there any opponents? Hearing none, seeing none, I'll close that part of the hearing. Traffic members, commission members, any motions or questions?
I motion that we look at all the streets and take in consideration that the traffic plan, or the plan that you had given us doesn't exactly alternate every other street. So that would have to be one of the considerations.
Yeah.
But
A lot went into a lot of decision to that was based on the hills coming up the hill versus coming down during the winter. But before us this evening is just Hancock Street. Do we have a motion? Approve?
I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve Hancock, second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Voted and
Yes.
so ordered. Item number 3, to amend Schedule 4 of Title 10, isolated stop signs by adding the following. Harris Street, northbound traffic at Sewell Street. We'll take these all together. Blaney Street, northbound traffic at Constitution Avenue, and Coolidge Street, southbound traffic at Constitution Avenue. Are there any proponents? I do have received an email from Councilor Cogliandro, who's in favor of these changes regarding isolated stop signs in his ward. So that'd be put on the record. Are there any opponents?
Officer Lucero, Revere Police. The one I'm talking about is Coolidge Street. I know that's going to be, you're coming down Coolidge Street, coming around the turn.
Correct.
Correct. The only thing is, if you're gonna make the right onto Blaney Street, you see the stop sign. But the width, my only concern is the width, is that people, there would have to be some way that they could see the stop sign, because if it's, I think people usually go along the inside, they're not gonna see that stop sign there. It's a little further out than would be on another street as you come, and it's not a traditional intersection. It's a traditional intersection when you come down Blaney into Coolidge, but going around the corner when it turns into Constitution, it's not a traditional intersection where it would intersect at a T or where it would intersection at a four-way stop. That's
Okay.
my only concern.
That deserves looking at even closer to see if that could be relocated.
All right, thank you, sir. That's it. That's almost my only concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other opponents? Hearing none, seeing none, close that part of the hearing. We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, just a question quickly. For each of these intersections, the other side of the intersection, are there stop signs already in place? My concern is just that it's going to be dangerous to have a stop sign in one direction, but not in the other direction.
Yeah, I don't think there is. you know, so it should be like on Harris Street, northbound and southbound at Sewell, and the same for Blaney.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table this until we can get some information on what the other legs of those intersections look like, and then address them appropriately.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Have a second? Second. All in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
None. We will table this item for further discussion after we get more information. Item number 4, that the Traffic Commission amend Schedule 8 of Title 10, parking restrictions generally, by adding the following. Sewell Street, westerly from Harris Street, this is how it's been advertised, 50 feet on the southern side along the fence of the housing project. Are there any proponents? Hearing none, seeing none? Go ahead, question. Yes.
Because of the narrowness, I'm a proponent of this because there's no way that you're gonna have safely turning and coming in the opposite direction. So it's a no-brainer on that. You need it if we're gonna make that change.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you. Any opponents? Hearing none, seeing none, close that part of the hearing. Traffic Commission members, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the change as it is described with the amendment that we extend it to Bixby. Because I think that in order to have two-way there safely, because of the width of the pavement, it needs to go block to block.
So the motion is to extend no parking on the westerly side of Harris, from Sewell Street to Harris Street,
From Harris to Bixby.
from Harris to Bixby.
Correct.
A second on the motion, the amendment? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Okay, so Harris Street will now, Sewell Street will now have no parking for 50 feet, for the block between Bixby Street and Harris Street. We do have a request to amend Schedule 11 of Title 10, handicap person parking, by adding 54 Carlson Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, yes, if we could add 54 Carlson Ave, and I also have another late address of 164 Orvis Road for a public hearing at our next meeting.
Motion to add 164 Orvis to 54 Carlson Ave for a public hearing, handicap
So moved.
person parking. So moved.
Second?
So ordered, and I believe that closes the hearing. There was no other business before the commission. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
It is adjourned at